Hey guys, welcome to the Bingezone. On today's video, we're going to be looking at Striking Vipers, episode 1 of season 5 of Black Mirror. And there's a lot to unpack in this episode, but before we dive too deep, I have a question for you guys. Do you think that Danny and Carl's relationship was gay in any way, shape, or fashion? Was it a homosexual relationship? I'd love to hear feedback because there's arguments for both sides, so I'd love to hear feedback. But without further ado, let's dive deep into this episode because there's a lot to unpack in this episode. It's very interesting to me, the very nature of the episode. Now, if we go to the very beginning of the episode, we're introduced to Danny and his girlfriend Theo as they reenact or role play this sort of relationship where they're strangers. Now, the role playing is a bit of a foreshadowing to just the kind of character that Danny is. Later on, after that role play session, they head home and Danny goes to play video games with their roommate Carl. And they spend all night playing, having a good time, bromancing, right? Nothing out of the ordinary until Theo gets up, comes to the living room, tells them that they kept her awake all night, and she goes back to bed. And then when she leaves, Carl kind of simulates and makes fun of her while dry humping Danny, you know, regular bromance stuff. And then we fast forward 11 years into the future. Danny and Theo are married. Danny's kind of bored with their suburban relationship type of life. And that's when Carl comes to his birthday party. It's been 11 years. He's now 38. And they rekindle over this video game Striking Vipers. And Carl gives Danny a copy of it. What's interesting here is that you see the dichotomy between the two characters. Danny is settled and married and he's bored with that lifestyle. On the other hand, you have Carl who's still living a fast-paced lifestyle, dating younger girls, out and about, being a musician, you know, doing the bro life, the bachelor life you would think would keep you satisfied. However, we do come to find out that Carl's life is just as unsatisfying as Danny's lifestyle. And both characters reconnect over the game Striking Viper, the latest iteration, Striking Viper X. And this is Black Mirror, so it wouldn't be a cautionary tale or a kind of twisty tale without some sort of virtual reality involved, right? And in this scenario, the two characters have the new game and they're now connected through VR, which not only lets them be in the game, but also feel the sensations of their avatars within the game. Now, this is where things get really interesting, to say the very least, between the two characters. Because one thing that was going through my mind in this episode is relating to real life. When you use a real life video game controller, for example, and you're fighting or you're doing anything, there's a haptic feedback of vibration from the controller that immerses you into the game. In this scenario, in this episode, they actually take it a step further and give you the VR kind of helmet that not only puts you in the game, but gives you that systematic feeling of immersion. And that's when the two characters themselves begin to fight in the game. And then Carl's avatar, who is a female, Roxy, kisses Danny's avatar, who is a male, Lance. And at first, it's weird. They turn it off and they both kind of step away from each other. And then the following night, they go back in and they talk about how they were drunk and they're just going to play fight. And then their avatars have full-blown sex, like full-on sex. They're feeling it on their couch. What's interesting here is before Danny started playing the game, when he would go to bed with his wife because they're trying to conceive another child, he would be tired and he wouldn't be aroused and he couldn't get up. But however, after the first encounter and the first kiss with the avatar Carl, when he goes to bed, his junk is hard, so he's into it. And they continue this relationship in the game for about 5 months. And Danny's wife starts to see, Theo starts to see that Danny's distancing himself. And Carl in his real life is starting to distance himself from his girlfriend. And the characters are sneaking away, and the two guys are sneaking away to this video game world. And they're having a full-blown relationship between the two of them. And it kind of escalates and deregulates their life until Danny decides to break it off and tries to fix things with his wife. Now, a year passes by. Danny's wife is now pregnant and they're going about, and his birthday comes around again and she invites Carl. Now, at this point, Danny's been playing the family man, doing his part, but Carl has been broken up about this virtual relationship. And when he gets with Danny and they start to speak about it, Carl is really into this and he wants Danny to come back, and Danny doesn't want to. However, he leaves the door open and he's almost throwing himself at Danny. So once midnight hits, Danny gets back in the game and they do it again. And the interesting thing here is, for Carl, he explained to Danny that him being a female avatar, it's the same kind of horniness you get, but however, the experience is different than when you would as him being a man and having a man orgasm or male orgasm as opposed to a female virtual orgasm. So he's addicted to that, while Danny himself needs that. However, it gets to the point where Carl says, "I love you" to Danny, and he freaks out. And at that point, the intimacy is there between the characters, and Danny wants to know where this is going. So he goes and he meets Carl in real life, and they have a real life man-to-man kiss. And there's no sparks, no fireworks, nothing to connect the two characters on a deeper level. And then he's like, okay, so this isn't going nowhere, let's break it off. However, Carl doesn't want that. They end up in a fight. Danny gets arrested. His wife comes and she bails him out, and then he confesses everything to him. And then time passes by later, and her anniversary comes around, and his anniversary gift from his wife Theo is the game where he can go and meet Carl in the virtual reality. And Carl has this date marked on his calendar, while Theo herself, her anniversary gift is the ability to go out, remove her wedding ring, and cheat, because we all know after years of being married, the monotony of it all can get boring. So they do these things to spice up their life. However, the most interesting part of this episode is the relationship between Carl and Danny, their virtual relationship, which they remain and are very arguing that it is not a non-virtual reality relationship. It's the relationship in the game isn't reflective of their real life, so therefore they're not homosexuals. But I posit you guys this: if the virtual reality gives you these feelings and they're involved in a very homosexual relationship, while not physically, because they're not physically touching, but emotionally it's two men connecting. Physically it's not, but emotionally, mentally, and all that, it's two men, and they both know each characters are males, and they're involved and entrenched in a homo relationship, well, not on the physical level, but still a very homosexual relationship. Is that a gay relationship or is it not? Is the sole fact of the physical interaction not being involved is what makes it heterosexual, or is it just a virtual reality and it means nothing? It can't. Now that's an interesting question, but it can't mean nothing if it's such a driving force in their outside lives, where it affects their actual lives, where it affects Danny and his relationship, it affects Carl, who looks forward to this, and his bond with Danny. It's not about the physical aspect of their characters, because both characters are digital. It's the fact that those two males themselves are bonding with each other. Therefore, it would make it a homosexual relationship. And that's just one of the things Black Mirror does in this episode. It gives us a cautionary tale of how virtual reality can blend the very construct of gender or sexuality, because all that in the digital space doesn't really matter, but at the same time in the physical space it matters very much so. Anyway guys, that's my explanation for striking vipers. Another thing I thought that was really hilarious is the fact that vipers are snakes, and you have these two male characters, and you could also have the running joke that the penis is a snake. So then you have striking vipers, and both these guys have vipers kind of striking at each other. Anyway guys, I'd love to hear feedback on this video in the comment section below. What do you think of this episode? And let me know in the comment section below, are they or are they not gay? I'd love to find out your feedback. And guys, until next time, binge on.